It was a heavy and solemn day on Tuesday when the Hudson County community, along with the rest of the country, gathered to remember those who lost their lives during the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Hudson TV attended ceremonies throughout Hudson County in towns including North Bergen, Guttenberg, Union City, and Weehawken. Many who attended witnessed the tragedy take place in New York from our side of the river 17 years ago. During the speeches, several state and local officials recalled memories of what they were doing that day and also gave their condolences to all the friends and families who have lost loved ones on 9/11.
I received a call that a plane hit the tower. I was getting ready to come into work. So at that point, I turned the TV on and began to try to follow events, but still thought it was an accident, but wasn't sure. Um, my son called up from college later on. He was at the college in New Jersey as the attack was taking place, and he was going to stay where he was as opposed to, there was nowhere to travel, just to try to stay together with people. Um, the second building hit, and the other events took place. I eventually, instead of going into work, directed people in town hall to stay. Man town hall had to be, and I went down to Boulevard East. I knew I would be able to get a view of what was taking place. And when I got there, the first building had already collapsed. The second building was still up. I didn't wait to see what happened then. I went right back in to the board office, and then we just managed things the best we could. And we ended up losing a lot of good people from North Bergen, a lot of great people from all, parts of the country, particularly New York and New Jersey. So it was just a horrible situation. On that night, there was also people having their own vigils, people lighting candles, forming groups. And what I did that night was drive around the town, just, stopping at the groups as I saw them. The hurt never really goes away. You could see it from the families that were here. Chris's mother is here. You could see it. His sister. It just doesn't go away. And every year we kind of renew it, and in a way we're not letting it go away. And it's a little harder for the families, but it may be comforting that people remember them and their sacrifice.
To never forget. This is always fresh in our minds at this time of the year. The day comes around and it never gets easier. Every year you learn how to try to cope with it a little bit better and just pray for the best that, God forbid, it never happens again. We can take any day for granted. Like we had said in the ceremony, as we run away from trouble and horror and fear, the first responders rush in. Everybody should really appreciate the job that they do to protect us every day, whether it's in police departments to our armed forces. But they're here for us, and people got to appreciate that.
It's very important that you remember today. I mean, I happened to work for the Port Authority just before 9/11. So I lost a lot of good friends that day. And it's very important that we remember the people who lost their lives that day. I think it's great that the town does this every year.
The city mourns with the families that were lost here, and not only here, but who were lost throughout the United States on that day. So it's just a sad day, but it's important to remember, how life is very short. You never know from one second to the next. A split second, somebody could be gone. But just keeping our country unified, keeping it as one country, regardless of the obstacles that we overcome, just sticking together as a country and realizing how important our freedom is and our democracy.
When this happened, I remember the confusion. I remember the fire trucks, the ambulances, the buses. They were all stuck down here by the ferry because they couldn't go across because the tunnel had been shut down. I remember when I went into my building, we had Michael Colbert. His parents were waiting for me in the lobby because his son was working on the 93rd floor. Cantor and Fitzgerald. And when the building came down, his son was killed, and he didn't know. I didn't know, and he wanted me to find out if there was any news about his son. So, to me, this is one of the most difficult ceremonies that I go through. It's very difficult because it brings back a lot of vivid memories. The hurt is going to be there. We just have to remind people of what happened and stay alert, stay ready, so it doesn't happen again. But I don't know what I can say to the families that will ease their pain. It's very difficult.
Well, you know, it's hard to believe it's 17 years ago already. And that day was a perfectly clear day, beautiful day, late summer, early fall day, not a cloud in the sky. And we'll remember not only is the tragedy of the buildings, the World Trade Center buildings collapsing and all the casualties, but all the thousands. Weehawken had 70,000 people that were evacuated to this location, this general location, who needed triage, who needed cleaning, who needed food and clothing and everything. So the whole community jumped in. Everybody jumped in from all over. You can't say enough for our police, fire, and emergency medical personnel for all their efforts that day and continuing, and all our military personnel. So it's a sad remembrance. It's something that we should honor those who perished that day, and also honor those who assisted everyone else who made it through that day.
I was working that day. I was a captain for North Hudson Regional Fire and Rescue, and we watching the events unfold on television. We got the call to respond over, but then due to the numerous victims, we responded down to the ferry terminal to assist in all the victims and people evacuating from the area. There were numerous casualties, and there was lots of people who needed decon because they were covered in the ashes from the buildings collapsing. It's just like everyone says, you know, we'll never forget, you know, but we're going to make sure we're prepared so this doesn't happen again. And if it does happen, we'll be here.
As generations continue, one thing remains. We will never forget.
In Hudson County, I'm Lydia De Los Santos with Hudson TV.